Whenever I have to teach Kamala Das, I usually begin by saying that she is the most famous woman poet in Indian writing in English after independence, just as Sarojini Naidu is the most famous woman poet in Indian writing in English before independence. This is very much true, and I shall start today's class by saying it. However, today I wish to point out that Kamala Das is a poet beyond labels. We call her a post independence poet, but she was born before the British left India. We say that she was extremely sensitive to the plight of the marginalized sections of society. And indeed she was. But we cannot but be aware of the fact that she was inordinately proud of her own Nair ancestry, of her own aristocratic lineage. Some critics say that she is a feminist, and perhaps she is. But in some of her love poems, we find the woman surrendering completely, surrendering romantically to male supremacy. She is a fine poet, a very fine poet. There cannot be any doubt about it. A born genius. But poetry for Kamala Das is a hit or miss game. And when she misses, when inspiration runs out, she performs rather badly. And she is indeed the author of dozens of extremely mediocre lines of verse. I pointed out that Kamala Das was born before independence. I failed to point out that she had her schooling in one of the most exclusive girls' institutions in Calcutta, and she was taught by English women, by British teachers, and that though her education ended with her schooling, she developed a passion for the English language and could speak the language with remarkable confidence and fluency, and even with a British accent. Kamala Das started life as a Hindu, as an aristocratic Naya, as a scion of the Nalapad Theravada. But in 1999, she embraced Islam and took the name Kamala Suraya. Everyone knows this story. Every student of Indian writing in English, every student of Kamala Das. But actually, the story does not end here. Later, Kamala Das gave an interview to the Hindu in which she said, I quote, I now feel one shouldn't change one's religion. It is not worth it. Unquote. Among the important poetry collections of Kamala Das are Summer in Calcutta, An Introduction, The Descendants, The Old Playhouse and other poems. And of course, you have the collected poems of Kamala Das. Kamala Das collected numerous awards, including the Kerala Sahitya Academy Award and the Central Sahitya Academy Award. Kamala Das was a bilingual writer, using English mainly for her poetry and Malayalam mainly for her fiction. The more I read Kamala Das, the more I marvel at how a girl, how a teenager, was able to shatter the mold of Indian poetry in English almost overnight and create a new kind of poetry. We sometimes say that Nazim Ezekiel is the father of modern Indian poetry in English. We should also say that Kamala Das is the mother of modern Indian poetry in English. Kamala Das has provided the poem with an interesting title, The Looking Glass. What does the looking glass mean? It means a glass into which you look in order to see your own reflection. To put it in one word, a mirror. A looking glass is a mirror. Why is this poem titled The Looking Glass? First of all, there is a looking glass in the poem. Look at line 3. Thus, early in the poem itself, we come across the looking glass. And the looking glass in the poem is a real looking glass. It is an image. It is a metaphor. In fact, it is a central metaphor of the poem. It is also a symbol. Let me read to you line 3. I quote, "Stand nude before the glass with him," unquote. This glass is a looking glass. Thus, in line 3 itself, the object looking glass is found. No wonder the poet decided to title the poem The Looking Glass. The object, the looking glass, is there. It's an image, it's a metaphor, and it's a symbol. Here, the looking glass is an object, is a physical object. But the object also becomes an image, the central metaphor of the poem, and an important symbol. Thus, first of all, the looking glass in the poem is a physical object, a mirror, which can be used by anyone to see the image it reflects of that person. Secondly, the relationship between the speaker and the man is the looking glass because it allows them to look into it and see themselves. Let me read a couple of lines more. Stand nude before the glass with him, so that he sees himself the stronger one and believes it so, and you so much more softer, younger, lovelier. It can be argued that here the looking glass referred to is a physical object, but it is a metaphor for the relationship because if the relationship had not been there, they would not be, the woman and the man would not be looking into the looking glass together. Thus, the relationship between the speaker and the man becomes a looking glass into which both can look in order to see themselves. Another interpretation would be that the woman and the man become looking glasses for each other. The man sees the woman sees the man. But they don't see just what they see. They see something much more than that. This is because they become looking glasses for each other. Perhaps there are even more ways to interpret the poem. Perhaps the poem itself is a looking glass. It is a confessional poem, and a very fine confessional poem at that. In the case of a confessional poem, the poet pours her life into it. The poet pours her heart into it. This is precisely what has happened in the case of the present poem. The poet pours her life, pours her heart into it. And then, when she looks at the poem, it acts as a looking glass. She sees herself in the poem. We may even go a step further and say that the reader is a looking glass. Because this is a confessional poem, a very fine confessional poem. And in a confessional poem, the poet takes the reader into confidence. The poet sets aside all her inhibitions. To confess means to admit, to reveal, especially admit wrongdoing. And confession is something which every Catholic has to do. When you commit a sin, you confess to the priest and receive the punishment. Something like that happens here. The poet takes the reader into complete confidence, confesses to the reader, reveals things which she would not, under normal circumstances, reveal. As a result, what happens? The reader becomes the looking glass. After the poem is written, after the confession is made, the poet, the speaker, looks at the reader, and the reader reflects the poet herself, reflects the speaker herself. And thus the reader operates as a looking glass for the poet. But why the looking glass? Why not the mirror? There was a time when I was teaching linguistics, and one of the topics we had to cover was you and non-you English. You means upper class, non-you means non-upper class. In 1954, the British linguist Alan H.C. Ross, who was then professor of linguistics at the University of Birmingham, published a paper in which he attempted to differentiate between the use of English by the upper class and the use of English by the other classes, you and non-you. Nancy Mitford, the novelist, commentator, and socialite, took up the matter and wrote a detailed article on you and non-you English in The Encounter. While discussing you and non-you English, I used to say that the looking glass is you, while mirror is non-you. Non-you people say mirror, but you people say, upper class people say, the looking glass. Perhaps the term the looking glass is more natural and more appropriate than the term mirror, because the term looking glass highlights the basic function, even the basic functionality of the object. You look into it, so you call it the looking glass. Kamala Das had a rather privileged childhood, and she attended an exclusive girls' school in Calcutta. Some of her teachers there were English women. It is quite possible that Kamala Das picked up the U term, the upper class term, looking glass, from her school. Finally, there is the looking glass concept in psychology. This psychological concept says that our self image is shaped by how we believe others see us, not how others see us, but how we think, we believe others see us. This psychological concept has tremendous applicability to the present poem, the looking glass concept. And I shall try to explain the applicability as we read the poem. Getting a man to love you is easy. Only be honest about your wants as woman. The poem certainly has an intriguing opening. It's an opening which provokes the interest of the reader and holds it. No reader who reads this will be able to prevent himself from reading the rest of the poem. Getting a man to love you is easy. In fact, most women think that that is the most difficult thing, to earn the love of a man, to win the love of a man. But here the speaker says, getting a man to love you is easy. It is not difficult as you think. It is not as difficult as you think. Getting a man to love you is easy. Only be honest about your wants as woman. That is the only condition. You have to be frank. You have to be honest. You have to express explicitly to him your wants as woman. The word wants is used here to mean desires, needs. Your needs as woman. What could they be? First of all, you have the sexual needs, the physical needs, the biological needs. Then you have the psychological needs, the emotional needs. And after that, maybe you have the financial needs. And still later, you have perhaps the spiritual needs. Thus, the desires of woman operate on more than one level. On a very basic level, there is the sexual want, the physical want, the biological want. You must make it clear to the man. And you must inspire the man to satisfy those needs. And then you must make it clear that it is not enough that there is a physical relationship, there is a sexual relationship. There are psychological needs, emotional needs that have to be fulfilled. Similarly, you must move step by step until you speak of your spiritual needs. And you must understand that it is only when you make your wants clear to the man that the man will love you. Make them explicit, and the man will satisfy your wants and also love you. You should be honest about your wants as woman. Don't try to hide them. Don't be dishonest about them. Don't try to camouflage them. Make them explicit. For any relationship to succeed, there should be a basic honesty in the relationship. Whatever your needs be as woman, talk about them. Make them clear to him. I feel tempted to contrast the opening lines of this poem with the lines of the love poems of Sarojini Naidu. Sarojini Naidu wrote a substantial corpus of love poetry. But physicality is completely absent from the love poetry of Sarojini Naidu. One cannot even in one's wildest dreams imagine Sarojini Naidu beginning a poem like this. A woman's wants, a woman's desires, a woman's needs. Of course, they were there at that time. Women had their needs, their wants, and desires. But as I said, the physical, the sexual, the bodily, the biological was completely absent from the love poetry of Sarojini Naidu. Stand nude before the glass with him, so that he sees himself the stronger one and believes it so, and you so much more, softer, younger, lovelier. Stand nude before the glass with him. Remove your clothes and stand with him before the glass. The glass is obviously the looking glass, the mirror, so that he can see you as well as see himself in the mirror. And you are in your birthday suit. You have removed all your clothes. You are in the nude. Stand nude before the glass with him, so that he sees himself the stronger one and believes it's so. It's not clear whether the man has removed his clothes. Perhaps he is not. He is fully dressed, perhaps. And the woman stands naked by his side, and both are in front of the looking glass, in front of the mirror. And he sees himself in the mirror, obviously, the stronger one, and believes it's so. He sees himself as somebody very strong. Of course, he's the average height of a man. The average height of man is slightly more than the average height of woman. Perhaps he is taller than the woman, and he is obviously stronger than the woman. And he sees himself the stronger one and believes it's so. He sees that he is stronger than you, perhaps taller than you, stronger than you, and he is convinced about it. He believes it's so. And you, so much more softer, younger, lovelier. That is what he wants. He wants to be strong. You should be weak. You should be softer. You should not be a muscle woman. You should not be a martial artist. Softer, younger. He's older than you, perhaps much older than you. Lovelier. The woman is much more lovely than the man, much more young than the man, and softer, much more soft than the man. And the man is stronger, taller than the woman. And both stand in front of the looking glass. The woman is in the nude, and he sees himself as somebody, probably he sees himself as somebody who protects the woman. Whenever I teach the beginnings of post-independence Indian poetry in English, I point out that there was a sudden expansion in thematic space in Indian poetry in English after independence. Things that were taboo in the pre-independence period suddenly came to be written about not just written about over and over again and celebrated. One good example is the physical dimension of the relationship between man and woman. The pre-independence poets wrote about the relationship, profusely wrote about the relationship between man and woman, but they stubbornly refused to touch the physical dimensions of the relationship. Poets like Nizam Ezekiel and Kamala were pioneers in this respect. And in one of his poems, Nizam Ezekiel proclaims the use of nakedness is good. Admit your admiration. Notice the perfection of his limbs, his eyes reddening under the shower, the shy walk across the bathroom floor, dropping towels, and the jerky way he urinates, all the fond details that make him male and your only man. Admit your admiration. You have to make it clear that you are his fan, his hardcore admirer. Make it clear that you worship him, you admire him. Admit your admiration. Notice the perfection of his limbs. He's handsome. It's not enough that he's handsome. You should notice it. You should point it out that his limbs are perfectly made, that his body is perfectly shaped. His eyes reddening under the shower. It happens in the case of some men, not in the case of all men. When he takes bath under the shower, his eyes become red, his eyes redden. In my case, my eyes redden when I drink a particular drink. I don't want to reveal what that drink is. The shy walk across the bathroom floor dropping towels. After his bath, he dries himself with the towels and then walks across the bathroom floor, dropping towels on the bathroom floor. Obviously, this man appears to be a rather well-off man. He drops the towels on the bathroom floor for the servants to pick up. The servants will come and pick them up and wash them and send them to the laundry. And the jerky way he urinates. And the jerky way. Jerky means starting, stopping, starting again. Men generally don't urinate at one go. They urinate, then they stop, then they start again. The jerky way he urinates. He urinates all the fond details that make him male and your only man. Fond means loving. All the loving details. Fond can also mean foolish, foolishly simple, naive. All the fond details that make him male. How he behaves as a man, as a member of the male gender. How he is a man, a member of the male gender, and your only man. Make it clear to him that you want him and no one else, that he is the sole man in your universe, that he is the sun. He is the sun, and it is because of the love that you get from the sun, the light, the warmth that you get from the sun, that you live, that you survive, that you flourish. Make it clear to him that there is no other man in your life. The one and only man is he. There is only one man in your life, and that is he. He has exclusive possession, control, ownership over you, your body, your mind, your heart, your soul. I would like to mention here the 1979 book, Tonight the Savage Right. It's a collection of poems, love poems by Kamala and Pratishnandi. The poems of Kamala attempt to present the perspectives of the woman, while the poems of Pratishnandi attempt to present the perspectives of the man. Tonight this savage right. Gift him all. Gift him what makes you woman. The scent of long hair, the musk of sweat between the breasts, the warm shock of menstrual blood, and all your endless female hungers. The speaker now goes a step further. The speaker first says that you have to make it clear that he is your one and only man. Then she goes a step further and says that you must give yourself as a gift to him. Not just yourself, those aspects of you which make you woman. Gift him all. Gift him what makes you woman. What is it that differentiates you from a man? What is it that makes you a woman? Gift that to him. Gift yourself to him. Gift those aspects of you that make you woman. The scent of long hair. Long hair is something which differentiates woman from man even today, though many women now wear their hair short. The scent of long hair. The musk of sweat between the breasts. The perfume of sweat between the breasts. The peculiar smell that comes between the breasts. The warm shock of menstrual blood. Menstrual blood is a mixture of blood and tissue which is shed by a woman during her monthly period. The warm shock, it is warm and the man doesn't expect it, so it creates a shock in him. The warm shock of menstrual blood and all your endless female hungers. A woman has hungers, not just hungers, innumerable hungers, endless female hungers. There are hungers as woman, hungers which are peculiar to her as woman, hungers which identify her as woman, endless female hungers, infinite number of hungers. Gift those hungers to him. What is the speaker having in mind when she speaks of her hungers? The hunger for love, the hunger for intimacy, the hunger for emotional connect, the hunger for psychological validation, the hunger for a few hugs, for a few kisses, the hunger for sex. I would like to contrast these lines with an extract from an equally well-known poem of Kamala Das, A Losing Battle. This is what she says in A Losing Battle. I quote, "Men are worthless. To trap them, use the cheapest bait of all, but never love, which in a woman must mean tears." Unquote. Oh yes, Getting a man to love is easy, but living without him afterwards may have to be faced. The speaker here says that getting a man to love is easy. Making a man fall in love with you is easy. It's easy to fall in love with a man and then make the man fall in love with you. Oh, yes, getting a man to love is easy, but living without him afterwards may have to be faced. But nothing is forever. The man falls in love with you. You are very much in love with him. It's a perfect union. But after some time, living without him may have to be faced. The problem is that no love affair lasts forever. No romance is eternal. Just as no life is eternal. The moment you are born, you are destined to die. Just as life contains within its womb the seeds of death, every love affair contains within its womb the seeds of rupture. Every romance, the moment a romance starts, it is destined to come to an end. Falling in love with a man, making a man fall in love with you, all these things are easy. But a time may come when the man does not love you, when the love affair is no longer there, when the romance is ended, and that situation will have to be endured. I'm reminded of the star-crossed lovers of literature, especially the star-crossed lovers of Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, Antony and Cleopatra. It's almost as if it is impossible to have a perfect love on this earth which lasts for a long time. It is almost as if a love which is divine, which is intense, which is passionate, which is perfect, which is divine, is always doomed. A living without life. When you move around, meeting strangers, with your eyes that gave up their search, with ears that hear only his last voice calling out your name, and your body, which once under his touch had gleamed like burnished brass, now drab and destitute. The last part of the poem describes the life of the woman after the relationship has ended. The poet calls it a living without life. It is true that the speaker lives, that the woman lives, even though the relationship has ended, but she just lives. She just survives. That is all. It's a living without life. When she meets strangers, she no longer searches for him with her eyes. This means that to begin with, she was searching for him. She was hoping to meet him. She was hoping to revive the relationship. But now things are different. You move around meeting strangers with your eyes that gave up their search, the helpless hope. She was hopeful of meeting him and reviving the relationship to begin with, but now she has given up the search. She feels everything has come to an end. With ears that hear only his last voice calling out your name, she is living, but she has no life. And her ears can Hear only his last voice calling out your name. She has become deaf. She has become deaf to all other sounds, all other voices, and all that she can hear is his voice calling out her name for the last time. What has happened to the body of the woman? At one point in time, it had gleamed like burnished brass. Under his touch. What an appropriate, what a powerful metaphor. The lovers in the act of love. The body of the woman is brass, and the man polishes the brass, and it gleams like burnished brass. How appropriate, how powerful, how original. Now drab and destitute. Now there is nobody to polish the brass. And the body has become drab, dull, destitute, unwanted by society. Destitute means lacking the means to look after oneself. The body of the woman has become destitute. There was a time when it gleamed like burnished brass, when it came alive under the touch of her lover. But now that the lover is no longer there, the body has become destitute. The body does not know how to look after itself. The body has lost the resources to look after itself. We can try to speculate how the relationship came to an end. One, the lovers fell out with each other. This is perhaps the easiest explanation. As I said, every romantic relationship contains within itself the potential to end itself. Two, the man breathed his last. When you read the last part of the poem, you find the lines are very poignant. There is so much pain in the lines, there is so much agony that it's quite possible that the relationship came to an end because of the death of the man. The woman speaks of his voice in her ears, his voice calling out her name for the last time in her ears. And this suggests that probably the man breathed his last. Probably the man died. 3. The man became terminally ill. And the woman's access to the man was cut off by the persons around the man. For some reason, the man became terminally ill, or maybe at least critically ill, and the woman lost all access to the man. Whatever be the explanation, the last part of the poem speaks of the possibility of the relationship coming to an end and the woman having to endure a life without the man, which is not life but just living. Coming to the technical aspects of the poem, of course, it's a free verse poem. Kamala Das never wrote traditional verse. Though it's a free verse poem, certain aspects of traditional verse are found in the poem. For example, Kamala Das takes care to open every line of the poem with a capital letter. The first letter of every first word of the poem, the first letter of every line in the poem is capitalized. This is an aspect, this is a feature of traditional verse. Kamala Das has written a free verse poem, but certain aspects, certain features of traditional verse can be found in it. There is not much variation in linear length. The diction is everyday, common, conversational. The rhythms are conversational, forceful. The poet makes repeated and extremely effective use of caesura. So in caesura, you pause not at the end of a line, but somewhere near the middle of the line. In this poem, there are numerous instances of caesura. Take line 3, for example. Your warns as woman, pause, stand nude. Or line 6, younger, lovelier, pause, admit your. Or line 7, admit your admiration, pause, notice the perfection. Alliteration is the figure of speech in which the same consonantal sound or similar consonantal sounds are repeated in succession. There are several examples of alliteration in the poem. An excellent example is provided by the last line of the poem. Like burnished brass, now drab and destitute. Anaphora is the figure of speech in which the word or a set of words is repeated in succession. In the present poem, the words you and your are repeated over and over again. A metaphor is a figure of speech in which an implicit comparison is established. A metaphor is an implicit simile. In a metaphor, two things are compared effectively but in a subtle manner, in a nuanced manner. A symbol is a figure of speech in which something stands for something else. In the present poem, the looking glass or mirror is both a metaphor and a symbol. The looking glass or mirror is a metaphor for, is a symbol for several things, including the lovers themselves, including the relationship between the lovers. The Looking Glass of Kamala is remarkable for its imagery. The images are sharp. The images manage to etch themselves in the mind of the reader permanently. And the most important images in the poem are the body images. Right from the beginning of the poem to the end of the poem, we come across body images one after the other. The nude body of the woman, the perfect limbs, the reddening eyes, the jerky way the man urinates, the scent of long hair, the sweat, the musk of sweat between the breasts, the menstrual blood, female hungers, eyes, ears, touch. Assonance is the repetition of the same vowel sound or of similar vowel sounds in succession. We have several examples of assonance in the poem. I shall give you just one example. Softer, younger, lovelier. The Looking Glass of Kamala deals with a number of themes. First of all, there is the theme of love, the need for love, ingrained in a woman's identity, the desire to be loved, the desire to be part of a romantic relationship that cannot be shaken off by any woman. The poem deals with the relationship between man and woman, gender dynamics, how the equation between man and woman plays out. The poem is a powerful exploration of the identity of woman and love, the place that romantic love has in this identity. The poem thematically explores gender dynamics, how the dynamic between man and woman, between a man and a woman in love, plays out. The poem seems to be keenly aware that no romantic attachment is forever. It's easy to start a romantic relationship, but one day that relationship is bound to end. And the consequences of that ending has to be faced by the woman. The poem seems to think that even a romantic relationship is subject to the parameters of patriarchy. Even when a man and a woman fall in love, the relationship cannot blossom, the relationship cannot flourish until the woman accepts the patriarchal parameters and surrenders to the man who is a symbol and also a concrete expression of patriarchal matrices. One of the achievements of Kamala Das is that for the first time in Indian poetry in English, a woman poet became bold enough to speak of the raw desires of the flesh. There had been love poems and love poets before Kamala Das, but no poet, certainly no woman poet, ever dared to speak about the bodies of women, about the fact that women have bodies and that bodies have hungers and that these hungers have to be satisfied. These hungers, the bodies of women, the hungers ingrained in these bodies, and the desire to satisfy them is an important thematic aspect of the looking glass. When one reads the poem, one gets the impression that every romantic relationship is bound to end today or tomorrow and cause immense tragic pain to the woman. One wonders whether the poem Looking Glass contains a warning, a not so hidden warning to women not to allow themselves to be entangled in romantic relationships because ultimately it is going to result in heartbreak. I have heard Nizim Ezekiel say quite often that a poem has to be read as a poem and not as a report on the life of the poet. It is quite true. And ultimately, that is how a poem should be read. But before that, it is quite natural, it's quite reasonable for readers to want to know how far the poems that they read and enjoy and appreciate are rooted in the lives of their creators. I have before me three things. The memoir of Merrily Wastebird, titled The Love Queen of Malabar. The movie, the biopic, the Malayalam biopic, Army, and Kamala Das's autobiography, which was first written in Malayalam as Ende Katha and was translated into English as My Story. The impression that you get when you read The Love Queen of Malabar and watch the movie Army and also read the autobiography My Story is that love poems of Kamala Das were, at least to some extent, rooted in her own personal experience, rooted in her own life. However, we have to remember that Kamala Das more than once admitted in interviews that she had been hospitalized and had received rather heavy hospital bills, and that she wrote the controversial autobiography Ende Kada, translated into English as My Story, hoping that it would become a bestseller and bring her the enough resources to settle her hospital bills.